Hello, my name's Dr. Robert O'Toole, and this is a quick recording of a presentation that I'm hoping to be giving to the Design Research Society in October 2020. I'm actually currently working at a very remote location, so just going to record the presentation, get it online just in case I can't do it live later. Okay, so the presentation is about a module that we teach at the University of Warwick called Introduction to Design Thinking. And it's part of the Institute for Advanced Teaching and Learning's suite of interdisciplinary modules for undergraduates. We are developing a postgraduate module at the moment, which will go live in the new year. This module is aimed at second, third and fourth year undergraduates, and they can come from any department within the university. We tend to get more from some departments, and some of the departments tend not to encourage their students to do interdisciplinary studies, but it is actually a really good mix with lots of science, maths, statistics, social science and the arts represented, and even the occasional life sciences student. So it's lively, interesting and extremely challenging, as we'll see. So here's Bo Kellerstein, who co-convenes this module, teaches 50% of it with me. We actually co-teach pretty much constantly, so we're there in the room or in the virtual room together all of the time, and we prepare all of the materials together. And we tend to do it as I'll talk about this in an agile way. So we have a kind of rough long-term plan, but we're meeting at the start of each week to actually really decide upon what we're going to do. And that's one of the interesting challenges that we've addressed using technology to make that agile teaching much easier, to do that in a responsive way, responding to the needs of the students as the module develops. So Bo is a graduate there of the Warwick Business School. She describes herself as a digital innovation researcher, education strategy consultant, women's empowerment champion, director of student experience in the chemistry department as well. So she has a full-time job, which is, again, another challenge that we use technology to help us with. And Bo obviously works very closely with students and recently won the Warwick Award for Teaching Excellence. Well deserved. Okay, and here's me. That is to say, I'm the ugly guy on the left of that photo. So Dr. Robert O'Toole, PhD in Design Thinking, higher education specifically, National Teaching Fellow as well. Senior Academic Technologist is my full-time job, which gives me access and experience with a wide range of technologies from which we could choose to apply to the challenges that have emerged in the module. Our choice of technologies is very much pedagogy and challenge driven. So we haven't used technologies for the sake of technology. That's really important. Also, as explains the photo, I get to do some, and have in the past done a lot more work as an innovation mentor using design thinking kinds of approaches with students at Warwick. And I'm standing there next to Catherine Allen, who's one of our successful graduates, and she's the founder of a really good company that we work with closely on the module called Limina Immersive, who specialise in augmented reality, virtual reality, experience design, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the sources that this module emerged out of and my PhD was based on was a project that was funded by my National Teaching Fellowship quite a few years ago now, where I actually managed to get a room, which is like almost unbelievable, an actual room on campus. That's so scarce. It's I was really lucky to get that, which I put a load of kit into, IMAX, video cameras, all that kinds of stuff, and grew a designerly community of student innovators around that. Okay, and lots of interesting stuff grew out of having that physical space where this kind of stuff, with the technologies, where this kind of work could happen. And I was able to mentor, coach, and spread those capabilities across the university, for which I won the Warwick Award for Teaching Excellence as well. So that's kind of the mentality that this comes out of, and Bo does a lot of that kind of work in the chemistry department now with chemistry students of all kinds. Absolutely superb work there. Okay, so out of that background, in this rather surprising context, so the University of Warwick, established 1965, very new university, but has grown at an astonishing speed. 27,000 students, quite a lot of admin staff there, academic staff 2,610, and you can see we're kind of 50-50 balanced undergraduate, slightly more undergraduate than postgraduate. It's what's called a Russell Group university in Britain, so one of the top research intensive universities, and it's very much department focused. So the individual disciplines are extremely strong. And until fairly recently, there was a little bit of integration between the disciplines, but they were very much independent and made up their own minds about how they do things. Okay, and you can see that we have quite a lot of really high-ranked departments there as well. You'll notice that there's no design school on that list, not because our design school isn't high ranked, but because we simply don't have a design school. We have no architecture, no design school. We have bits of design kind of stuff and a few people doing design research spread across the university. So it appears in the Warwick Manufacturing Group, which was originally automotive oriented, which is actually more broad now. Warwick Business School, kind of business school style design thinking kind of work. We have theatre studies actually is the most designerly of our departments, I think, and Catherine was a theatre studies graduate, so worked very closely on that project with theatre studies and also creative writing as well, which is very designerly. Okay, so not a strong kind of discipline of design, but it's there under the cover if you can find it and connect it together, and that's kind of one of the reasons we've been doing this, is to connect it together. That photo bottom right there is of a teaching building called the Oculus, because it looks like a giant eye, not because it's got anything to do with the VR company. And that's remarkable in that it was the first major teaching-only building in the university. So only very recently has the idea of there being a teaching building that serves all of the departments and is very high quality. So the quality of build and quality of design in there is extremely high. So that's a new idea. We teach in there. It's quite a useful space for us because there's lots of interesting design features as well, and there's a lot of cool artwork that we can take the students out to see. It's a campus university as well, so when we're teaching on campus, we get the students out and about. It's like a small city in itself, but in a kind of controlled way. So we can take them to cafes and do what we call cafe anthropology, which is a really exciting thing for them to do. They're kind of stuck in lecture theatres a lot of the time, so getting out and doing that is remarkable. Okay, so the module itself sits within the Institute for Advanced Teaching and Learning, which is within that kind of very discipline-oriented structure of the university. Is pretty radical. I've been part of this since its foundation. It actually was formed out of a merger of two other initiatives funded by the Higher Education Academy, the Reinvention Centre for Undergraduate Research, and you can see some of the stuff represented there, like the Reinvention Journal and the International Conference of Undergraduate Research that they run every year, which is amazing stuff. So that's getting students to be research active. And the Capital Centre, so Creativity and Performance in Teaching and Learning, which was linked to the RSC. You can see Open Space Learning was one of the projects we had there. And we've got lots of, one of the things that IATL does is work on different kinds of teaching space in higher education. For us, for the University of Warwick, was quite radical, the idea of students being in an open space with whiteboards and all kinds of stuff like that, which is really essential to how we teach design thinking, having those spaces. And we tried out various different spaces for this project. That's not our students, by the way, that's one of the other classes, but it's very much representative of some of the ways in which we work. So lots of big open physical spaces that we can use, and also getting out into the campus and beyond, in fact, as well, to the city. So University of Warwick is next to Coventry. It's nowhere near Warwick, by the way. It's next to Coventry, which is a big, interesting city with lots of cultural activity, and City of Culture 2021 is going to be happening next year there. So we've got lots to do on that. So here's the suite of modules. You can see there's kind of very broad range of things. The way modules appear, the way in which they get to happen tends to be academics from other departments, and part of the kind of IATL family are facilitated in working across the university, meeting other academics from different departments and coming up with these interdisciplinary modules. And there we are, we have Introduction to Design Thinking, Theory and Practice. You can see that it's a CATS 12 or 15 points, so there's two different amounts of credit that the students can get to this, which gives us some complications, and also the fact that it's for second, third or fourth year students as well makes life a bit complicated too. It's examined, by the way, by portfolio. So the students create a portfolio, and there are variations in the requirements for the portfolio to meet those CATS requirements and the different levels of study that the students are at. Okay, so you get the idea of the kind of place. And we do find that there's synergies between the different modules, but until recently, those synergies haven't been explored enough. I think we're doing that much more now. And the use of technology and collaboration platforms is making that exploration of the synergies much more effective. So, we've used that slightly controversial term, I guess, amongst design researchers, design thinking. Better give you a quick definition of what we think design thinking is. What we think design thinking is a big blank white screen. So we're very open about this. I have a kind of design research background that I'm interested in all of that research into how designers work and what makes designers have special capabilities. We don't, not lionizing them, not thinking that they're magical in some way, but there's something about the way in which designers work. They don't all work in the same way either, but there's something there. Okay, so there's something there that's important that we can bring to people and spread more widely, which is really, that's the kind of all that we think design thinking is about, is that kind of lots of design-ly concerns, ways of working, tools, technologies, all that stuff that's really important. We want to get it out there into the world and get more people involved in this, more people using, thinking, operating these ways to make our society better at solving problems, better at innovating, better at working with each other, better at understanding the world as well. So we have a very broad understanding of what we mean by design thinking. It's also, of course, quite a useful title within a university like Warwick to get people interested. Not having a design school established, design thinking is one of those catchy terms. Yeah, we can get them in. And we do have a very broad kind of base for this. You can see the kinds of publications, there's a lot more than this represented, that we feed into this. So we do raise the students' awareness of these materials, and we do have a reading list. We do point them at these things, and we make available books through the library, electronic books and journals and stuff. But they're not really, reading a lot of this isn't core to what is only a 10-week course, remember. But we're introducing the ideas, and the technology helps us with that as well. So we're able to, in this very agile way, as does the module develops with the unique group of students that we've got every time we do it, we're able to take these items and just give them links or share the journal article. We use OneNote so that we can drop, for example, a PDF into the students' own OneNote notebooks. Okay, so talk more about how that works in a little bit. But that very agile way of working, very agile, fast way of distributing stuff. So I'll literally be in the middle of doing a short lecture bit, maybe 15 minutes, discussing stuff with the students. And I'm kind of thinking, the way this is going, they need to read this article. So I'll get the article to them instantly by dropping the PDF into their OneNote notebooks. And it's there, they've got it, and they can access it. And some of them will go away, read that in depth. Some of them just have a look at it. Some of them will just the terminology and the idea of the thing just seeping into their thinking and having an influence. And then we see that later on coming back into the design studies that they write in their portfolios in OneNote. So our motivation for this, and this is really key as well to understanding why we use technology and the way in which we use technology for this and the kind of pedagogy we have. Our motivation is that Warwick students are clever, some extremely clever, way more clever than we are, capable, deeply knowledgeable about their own disciplines, but have little or no exposure to designerly ways. They need this desperately to be successful in their future careers. Okay, we know that. That's pretty clear. It's essential to success, whatever their careers are. And we have people going into sciences, biology, chemistry, all that kind of stuff, and they're saying, this is really useful for us. And to maximise their contributions to solving the big challenges we face now and in the future. So we have this kind of massive pool of really clever students that come to us, and they're kind of digging deep down into understanding their disciplines. We need them to be able to reach out and across to each other, to work together across disciplines and beyond in the outside world to address those big challenges. And design thinking is something that helps them with that significantly. That's our motivation. So we can see that there's some gap and we're filling the gap in a small way. Okay. Still only working with 30 students a year on the course, but those 30 students will go and network with other students, especially the second years, but also the third years and the fourth years. Even after they've left the university, they are having a big influence as they go out into the world and taking these capabilities and spreading them more widely. Okay, so here's a diagram we showed to the students at the start. This is what we're trying to achieve. Bottom left-hand corner there, so students from any discipline with little or no experience of design and innovation. And we are giving them, and this is a real abstraction, but it helps to understand what we're up to and why we do things in the module. And we're able to point it out verbally or in our dialogue online. Hey, look, there's a bit there that's helping you to become good at facilitating. So we have this capability stack, which is at the bottom, knowing some stuff about designerliness, innovation, lots of quite a broad knowledge base. And we include stuff in there from many different disciplines as well, especially psychology, behavioral science, cognitive science, which I've got a bit of a background in, and also artificial intelligence, computing, loads of stuff, lots of knowledge we're giving them, but also encouraging them to grow their own knowledge base and get good at growing their own knowledge base outside of their own discipline as they need in taking on the challenges that we give them. Participating in design thinking. So from the outset, we're not doing long lectures at them. We're actually setting up short exercises where they're actually trying to solve challenges, work on challenges together, and they're participating in the process. And we are modeling the skills ourselves and then getting them to grow their own capability as they develop. We want them to be, as the module proceeds, facilitating design thinking activities, not simply with each other, but also with people in the outside world, people in the community. And we get them, for example, this year we took them out to a museum and got them working with members of the public out in a museum and getting them to think about the design of things. Managing design thinking, or that kind of whole coordination business. And by the way, the order of these doesn't represent any kind of hierarchy in how important they are. It's just kind of the steps that we take. So we do the facilitating first, then we get them to run their own projects. So they're managing right up to researching. Now, officially, it's the finalists who do the researching bit. That's kind of essential to them to have a kind of research, a reflective account of the effectiveness of design thinking in their portfolios and their reflective essays. So we have all those things, and now you can kind of grasp the complexity of this from the student's perspective. So we're repeating this diagram to them all the time and pointing out, yes, it's a case of this, it's a case of that. Skip ahead a little bit there. So we have used extensively a digital collaboration platforms. Microsoft Teams, could be other platforms just as good, but Microsoft Teams is the one we have at the university. We've used this digital collaboration platform to establish an ongoing dialogue in a whole class team, but also in project group teams, where they're talking to each other, they're making plans, and we're able to look at that dialogue in the digital format and just drop a note in there saying, hey, what you're doing there is you're doing effective managing of design thinking projects. Perhaps just think about what you're doing and write it down and include that in your reflective essay. So having it as a digital format, increasingly digital. When we're doing that live, it's kind of harder to do because, in class, you've got loads of stuff happening and you're having to kind of stop the action and tell them, which is a bit intrusive where you want them to flow. So I guess that kind of reflection, in action to reflection on action loop is easier to do in the digital context. You get the timing right. So then you're not giving them the feedback too late. So the activities that we're doing, and this has changed a little bit over time, workshops and lectures. Actually, what we did last year was a 3-hour integrated workshop lecture with just 15 minutes of lecture-y kind of stuff, but it's not very lecture-like, it's much more interactive. We use the Vivox personal response system as part of that, so that we can give the students polls and get them to do crowdsource ideas on their devices, etc., and gather feedback from them instantly. So they're very much interactive lecture kind of things and workshops. One of the reasons we try to reduce the amount of PowerPoint presentation we do, because we find that it pushes the students away and gets them to be more kind of passive recipients, which is absolutely not what we want to happen. So we want them much more involved. So I don't want basically there to be a giant PowerPoint screen between me and the student getting in the way. Use it effectively, use it for things that really matter, but mostly it's focused upon us interacting. Readings and videos, which this year, in the first year, we used Moodle to distribute the readings and videos to the students, and we found that it was too kind of far away from the dialogical activity that they were using, the very interactive stuff. So actually this time we used an approach where we were pushing readings and videos. We provided kind of lists for them to access themselves, but actually we were pushing it just in time into their OneNote notebooks. Field studies, mentioned we get out there to the museum. We send the students out to do their cafe anthropology, and go and do a study of how a cafe design works, how the flows operate, etc., and all the nudges and stuff that the cafe designers are trying to use. And design challenges, which is the big thing, I guess. So the hard thing for the students is they have a series of design challenges. There's 5 of them, and some students on the lower cats have to write up as design studies 4 challenges, and the students on the higher cats number have to write up 5 design challenges. Initially, they are doing the design challenges in a pair, so going out to the cafe and doing that in a pair, and then they're building up to doing bigger, more complicated teamwork design challenges and writing them up as design studies in their OneNote notebooks. So again, this is really important that we are able to see what they're doing and respond to them really fast in OneNote, seeing they're developing design studies, response to the challenge, and also the dialogue that's happening in Microsoft Teams, and giving them feedback, adding comments, annotating their design studies as they develop. And maybe, so something we did right at the end this year, after the students had to disappear off and were locked down into their bedrooms all over the world, Nigeria, India, all kinds of places, we were having 1-to-1 15 minutes video conference meetings in Teams, looking at specific design studies and helping them to develop them better. and getting that dialogue going. It's all about dialogue. So that's so important. Talking about things in the world, talking about the challenge, talking about the ideas that are developing, and talking about the project that they're collaborating on. Talk. Also very visual as well. So OneNote's fairly visual medium. We're able to draw diagrams and stuff together using that, as you'll see in a minute. So all of that stuff is evidenced in the multimedia portfolio, which is a collection of the design studies in response to the design challenges, and a reflective essay, which is a format that we imagine the students wouldn't be very good at, and they'd really struggle with that. Actually, it turned out they are brilliant at it. Most of them have never done anything like that before, but it's as if they've spent all their lives writing these kind of academic essays, and then you kind of say to them, okay, be yourself, write about yourself. You are the person that matters here in the reflective essay. And they're going, oh, that's really cool. I'll do that. And they get really into it. So I was really surprised. And also we encouraged them to do that in a multimedia way. They can do video now. We don't get many doing video. We haven't had many doing video in the past, but we'll try to emphasize that more, and audio recordings. But they do use images and stuff in their reflective essays. Okay. So through all of that, we want the students to become global designerly change agents, which is a kind of fancy idea. We just want them to be able to get out into the world and spread this design capability and use it to improve things in the world. So challenges, that's quite an ambitious thing I've just described. And like I said, we're using technology and some really interesting techniques to make that possible, especially the difficult within the context of our university. But we do have some challenges, and it's important that Bo and I, meet regularly and talk through these challenges. And also while we're teaching, we are thinking about these challenges as well. So these are the kind of challenges that I think are common to design teaching, design thinking teaching, anyway, sort of well known. So designly ways of thinking and acting are hard to teach, hard to define, and transitioned into through diverse and often precarious routes. It's not simple. Okay, how you work with a student to transition into this different way of thinking, it's unique for each student. Every time it's different as well. And it's hard to do. You can only really do it by a lot of practice, a lot of iteration. But time is something we don't have much of. 10 weeks is very fast. And we only have 3 hours of actual contact time. We're going to reduce that as well in the next year. And also the students as well, they're busy. They're very busy. So that transition, we've got to pitch the challenges and get that reflective dialogue and our ability to interact with them and give them feedback and advice and point them to different resources, and also motivate and sustain them as well. So we've got to be able to do that to get them through it, because it is hard. Every student approaches the module from a different direction with different levels of confidence, especially when connecting with the outside world. Okay. So we get over that very quickly with some key activities early on, where we're doing a lot of social stuff, networking. We do this analog social network thing where we get the students to visually represent on a big board what's special about each of them and how they're all interconnected and how they form a collective capability. Now that's going to be interesting when we try to do this fully online, which is what we're going to do next year. But we have ideas on how we can do that, and we've kind of been practicing that in lots of different contexts to see can we get that kind of collaboration working digitally, and we can. So they're number 3, they're clever people working under pressure in unfamiliar teams with their status challenged. So they're high status people, very successful at what they do, but they're doing stuff that's they're a bit out of the depth. And of course we know that under those conditions, in the design process, people tend to suffer from the idea fixation problem, especially early in the design process. So they'll grab an idea, go, yeah, that's the answer, it's amazing, let's go for that. And they don't want to let it go. You can get conflicts emerging within the teams as well, because they're not, they're quite inexperienced, so they're not good at spotting that happening and good at handling the conflicts with diplomacy. Teamwork, following on from that, is not something they're all used to. Okay, some of them have never really worked in teams in this way before. So we need to use our collaboration platform to support that and resolve conflicts and issues and show them how to do things better. I think the good thing is, though, that it may be the case, and this probably needs to be researched properly, they're more used to teamwork in that digital context than they are face-to-face together, which is interesting. So they kind of got the role of the collaboration platform. As this year we've been using Teams for 2 years, we increased the use of Teams significantly, shifted the focus onto that, and they just seemed to kind of get it, and it seemed to work just straight off. So there was no major problems with that, and they seemed more comfortable in the digital collaboration space. Students lead incredibly busy lives. The logistics of collaboration and field studies are difficult. And again, Teams helps us with the logistics, organising things. And there's lots of features built into Teams. It's not just a video conferencing tool, by the way. In fact, we don't treat it as a video conferencing tool. It's a collaboration platform for teamwork. So it has all of the Microsoft Office systems, sharing files, working on files together. It's got shared task lists, project management tools, all of that stuff. And we encourage the students to explore those tools and use them for their project work. And number 6, we're not in a design school, so we don't have dedicated facilities. We have to make do. But that is part of design thinking, because one of the things about design thinking is it happens there in the world outside of the design studio. It's taking designerly ways of knowing, ways of doing things out into the world and making them happen anywhere. And that kind of adaptability is key to what we want. And again, collaboration platform, collaboration tools, taking those tools and getting the community in. So with Teams, you can invite external people in quite easily to collaborate in the text discussions, work on files, or join video conferences. Right from the outset, that's something that we've been doing, is getting people, even when we were doing lectures, actually bringing people like Catherine from Limina and some of our other partners like Heidi Sprung, we'll see them in a minute, into the lectures for short periods. So that kind of flexibility, now that people are becoming used to collaboration tools and video conferencing and all of that, that kind of flexibility is amazing. So we can bring them in very easily, just in time to add a bit of contribution. And we've been really flexible about that as well. So being able to bring people in just when we need to bring them in, it's great. And we kind of got an idea that actually the collaboration space that we're working in, we want that to be much more open. So we ran a conference actually as part of what we did this year. So there was a whole day of activities with the 3-hour extended workshop in the middle of it, which was a public conference on virtual reality and designing for VR, where we had Limina come in and do stuff together. Now that's going to be even easier now that people are used to dropping in on a video conference, making a contribution. Members of the public are used to doing it as well. It's going to be amazing next year. Really looking forward to that. Oh, more challenges. We have some more. Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. So kind of more specific to our context. It's only 10 weeks, and that's a lot of change and complexity for the students to keep track of. And I think so a bit of advice on being so focused on dialogue and emergence and the collaboration platform, some students were a bit lost in that and they needed a bit more structure and direction. Okay, so getting the balance, Microsoft Teams isn't very good for that. It's not a VLE. It's not something where you can give a very structured learning process. It's much more emergent and chaotic. Some students struggle with that. And I think we do need to go back on that a bit and add in more structure, more signposting, more of a clear sense of progression for the students. But also, actually, some students really flourished in that, and you could see them developing their ability to handle that complexity. Okay. So the students are already very high achievers in their own fields, which brings lots of issues, but they feel like novices in this new discipline. So very quickly making them feel at home and capable. And again, using the technology. One of the things that surprised me when we introduced OneNote as the main medium for the design studies and also for sharing PDFs and stuff this year is a lot of them were used to using it already, and they helped the other students to master it very quickly, and I think that gave them extra confidence. And you could see the product of that in their design studies, which were much more creative, interesting, exploited the technology much further this year. So I think that the technology helps there to, when they're novices in this new way of doing things, the technology gives them some familiarity. I was really happy to see that. The students are too used to a passive transmission of content pedagogy. Yep, okay. So obviously we're not doing that. We're doing a very dialogical and emergent pedagogy. Students are too used to finding the one correct answer. And again, we want them to diversify. So creating their design studies, which are very personal, in their OneNote and sharing those with people. And next year, we're going to get them to do much more sharing. We're going to do more peer reviewing of it and get them to peer review each other's design studies much more. And we're going to possibly use the Moodle workshop peer review tool for that, which is a kind of structured peer review process in which you direct the students to peer review following a scaffolding. So that seems to help with them feeling safer in not having to come up with the one correct answer. And the students struggle with phases of ambiguity necessary for transformation. Doing that online, making ourselves available for drop-ins, short consultations, helping them through those stages where they're feeling, oh, don't understand, this is all weird, this doesn't make any sense, it all feels ambiguous. That's essential. And again, the technology really helps us with that. So this is a problem that we as teachers struggle with. We've got tons of content. I mean, you saw those. The reading list is potentially immense. Bo and I can both talk for hours non-stop on this stuff, and we could transmit to them all of that, but we have to resist reducing their sense of agency and independence. So it's actually, we have to stop being the experts. And we actually tell the students that to not think of us as so much as teachers and more as consultants in their developing capability. So treat us as consultants, call upon us when they need. We deliberately try not to overload them and not talk at them for hours. Learning from real-world first-hand experience and developing an individual critical creative response may not seem legitimate to some of them. Within our Russell Group University, very research-oriented, that's hard. So we have to work against that all the time and make them feel like, no, this is real. This is how people do it in the outside world. And again, the technology allowing us to bring people in from the outside makes that so much better. Okay, so we can legitimize what they're doing. They can see it as real, authentic. We also, I should have mentioned, we do bring people in from other disciplines as well. So we have somebody from WMG comes in and talks to them about the kind of formal engineering design processes, which aren't that far off from design thinking. So it connects really well, and that gives a sense of legitimacy, even after they've been doing the crazy jumping around in the theatre studio stuff that I'll mention in a minute. Some students, number 9, some students are overly combative and not constructive. And we have to model what it means to disagree, how to disagree in the kind of designerly way, rather than the kind of academic way, which is far more kind of bloody-minded, disagreeing for its own sake. We haven't had much of that, but we've had a bit. And modelling how to disagree, showing that in digital form as well is easier. So a thread where you kind of bringing in lots of different perspectives and making sure that you're seeing things from different directions in a more constructive way, rather than that bloody-minded, combative way. My background is philosophy, by the way, which is definitely bloody-minded, combative, rather than constructive. So I understand why people might think like that. Number 10, students may be risk-averse. Although taking the module seems like a big risk already. So these students are probably less risk-averse, but there's still a bit of that. So we can use the technology, use the digital platform to be feeding bits of messages and support to them all the time. So in Teams, we can easily use the notification system to send a quick message saying, hey, we've got a difficult bit. We're going to do something crazy later on. You might find this a bit challenging, but it's okay. We'll support you. And here's some stuff you could look at if you really want to. And we can keep feeding those kind of messages to them as instant notifications. And also they can contact us back at any time in a very fluid way. That's not overwhelming for us, not kind of asking too much of our time. It's just kind of simple, kind of micro actions through the digital collaboration platform. And we have some solutions, okay, which I'm going to go on to in a second. I'm just going to take a break now. Back in a few seconds.